Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Welcome to MotorWeek podcast number 318. Thank you, Alec Webb. I'm your host, John Davis. Now, today's podcast is all about our 2024 MotorWeek Drivers' Choice Awards. We'll talk about the cars, trucks, and utilities that we like driving the best in the last year, plus which vehicle rose above the rest to become our best of the year. We'll also have a lightning round about how General Motors is altering course and plans to start offering plug-in hybrids again. Joining me today are two-wheeling reporter Brian Robinson.
Hello, sir.
Over the Edge reporter Greg Carlos.
Hi there.
And our digital producer Jessica Ray.
Hello.
Okay, folks, in case you've been living under a rock, every year of every week, we test a lot of cars here at MotorWeek. Wow. And every year we all get together, and it's usually in early December, and we decide which vehicles that we like best that we've driven over the last year, and that's why we call it our Drivers' Choice Awards. It's the ones we like driving the best. We vote in a number of different categories, which have changed over the years because we basically have our categories to reflect whatever the buyers want at any particular time. Right now, we have 12 categories, and they span from best family car to best full-size pickup. So let's get started and let's go around the table with each one. And why not tell our listeners what you like best about each of our winners? And let's start with best family car, a car that got a big makeover and is a terrific vehicle, and that's the Honda Accord.
I really liked about the new Accord. I actually just drove it the other day, and the hybrid system in it, I think, might be one of my favorites now that they're kind of like making hybrid-only trims. So they're not going full-on with like where Toyota's going with the Camry, which is just full hybrid, but they are, having these nicer trim levels just be hybrid exclusive.
But they're still offering you a choice between internal combustion or a hybrid, and I think that's good.
Yeah, they kind of started that with the original Accord hybrid. Wasn't any better, barely better fuel economy-wise. It was all about more performance, and they've always kind of set it up as kind of the luxury choice with their brand, and they continue that, and it's a great hybrid system, but either engine in the Accord is great. But family car is one of those segments you say we adjust them. We used to have compact car and then family sedan, and now there's fewer cars being made these days and a lot of small cars that are great for families. So now we just go with best family car.
A compact is as big as what we used to
I think that's why, right? Because we could have very well given it to a compact here because you can fit your families in them now. But just to kind of echo I think everybody here likes the hybrid version of the Accord the most because it really is. I mean, it rivals Toyota now, like with its operation. But for me, having two kids and having a midsize sedan, being able to get them in the rear seat, and I'm a car person. I like driving cars, so the space inside the Accord, and then just the consistency that Honda continually brings to it. So, that to me is probably one of our easier choices of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in this day and age when so many manufacturers have basically either walked away from the car market or have one model left, if you're looking for a family sedan because of the ease of getting into it and just, frankly, what a bargain they are compared to SUVs, the Honda Accord was a pretty easy winner this year.
I got to say, nobody ever asks me anymore, like, what car do you like?
Yeah.
It's always an SUV or a truck.
Yeah. But let's stay on cars a little bit, and let's go to our next category, which is Best Luxury Car, and that's the BMW 5 Series. It not only got a makeover this year, they really were one of the first to do something rather novel about their powertrains.
They pretty much have like a powertrain for just about everything. So they have standard gas, they have a full EV, but they're also going to have a upcoming plug-in hybrid model. So,
and they all fit in the same chassis.
Yep, all in the same platform. And I haven't driven the plug-in hybrid model yet, or we haven't driven the plug-in hybrid model yet, but we mentioned it actually on a very recent podcast where we talked about the 5 Series, but the way that they transferred the driving experience that you expect out of a gas-powered BMW into the all-electric one is pretty impressive, and they've done that here in the 5 Series.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of time in it, but if it is exactly like what they did in the 7 Series, where you get all those wide range, and the gas engines are so smooth, and they've tuned the EVs to be more natural feeling like a gas engine. So you can get in one or the other and really have no idea which powertrain is under the hood. It's pretty amazing.
And yet it still has the balance and the overall character, sporty character that we've appreciated in the 5 Series. And then, we've had this discussion around the office. A lot of us are saying, when you look at a pure EV these days, after you've driven a whole bunch of them, the line blurs as to which one you actually just got out of. So finding this character and being able to instill it into an electrified vehicle is going to be increasingly important going forward. And the folks at BMW seem to have already figured that out.
Yeah.
Best sports sedan, repeat winner, Acura Integra. Why? Why did we pick it 2 years in a row?
Because it's the best sports sedan right now. I was actually going to mention on the 5 Series is the reason we gave the 5 Series luxury car as opposed to family car. While it may seem obvious, we consider price in our discussions. We obviously would probably all pick $100,000 cars if it was purely just for driving, but price is a factor. So
it's a big factor.
With the Integra, there's a lot of bang for the buck, and bringing back the Integra name, I think, was a pretty big deal for enthusiasts. And originally, I was not super thrilled with what they gave us, but then we started driving it, or specifically I did. I really fell in love with driving this car. It is, for what I use it for with 2 kids, it's a little bit tight, but I think I said in one of my sound bites, because we do have a long-term Integra, that it's worth it to me because I enjoy driving it so much. I don't mind squeezing in a little bit here and there. And then just the addition of the Integra Type S, which is the Acura version of the Honda Civic Type R, to me is just like a chef's kiss.
And that really cemented our repeat winner. That's really why we basically felt we had to give it to it again, is because they upped the ante on themselves.
Yeah, another kind of segment blur, because it's not a true sports sedan. It is a hatchback. But with the addition of the Type S, that 2-liter engine kind of gives you a lot more power and kind of, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, kind of tames the experience down. It's more performance, but it doesn't feel like a hot rod. It just feels like a more powerful, smoother Integra.
Big difference between, I think, it and the Civic, even though they share a lot.
Yeah, and I think styling-wise, I really like what Acura is doing with styling, and I think it also just feels a little premium too, which I think it just checks all the boxes.
Acura has always managed to use technology to show the premium or luxury side of the brand. I think almost more than anybody else. Maybe Audi would be the only other one I would consider in that same area. So you don't necessarily have to have it overly opulent, but you've got so many features that you feel you're driving something premium. I think people that drive Teslas will probably feel almost the same way.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that, for better or worse at times, but it's certainly on a good swing right now for sure.
Best sport coupe. 7th generation of the Ford Mustang, just when we thought Mustang might disappear as far as an internal combustion engine vehicle. They've roared back with really, I think we'd say the best Mustang yet?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly not revolutionary in design.
But it is evolution.
I'm sure we did say that at one point.
No, I mean, I think they really refined it. To me, that's what this feels like. They just took what was already very good and they've refined it. And I think all of the changes I've been pretty happy with personally. I mean, I really, and plus even that base, EcoBoost, the Turbo 4.
370 horsepower.
It's still an enjoyable experience. You don't need to get the V8. And also, thanks for still offering it in a convertible.
Yeah.
Yeah, my opinions are based strictly on the Dark Horse version.
Why don't you talk about what that really is?
I haven't really driven the EcoBoost or the standard GT. It's essentially a tire and handling and brake package.
A heavy tire
GT.
package, I might add.
Yeah.
500 horsepower, though.
The thing that's stood out to me the most is just how great it sounded. That's kind of a weird thing to be, to point out. But the previous gen Mustang, that GT, just always seemed to, I won't say fake, I won't use that word, but the engine noise just wasn't super, it was loud. It just wasn't quite there. This
sounded like a bit contrived, maybe.
But this one sounds awesome. Best Coyote yet.
Yeah, because they also switched up the engine a little bit too, dual intakes now. I mean, we drove it right at the release in Pasadena, me and Jess, and it's everything a Mustang enthusiast would want. And I think they still offer something for people who they're still trying to reel into the Mustang realm. So, we can't talk about it without mentioning the Fox body gauges that you can use.
Conjure up.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Best performance car, Chevrolet Corvette E-Ray. And I think we all would have to agree that we're pretty impressed that GM basically spent the effort to actually electrify the Corvette and bring us the first all-wheel drive Corvette ever. And the fastest Corvette, although I think it beats the Z06 we had by about a tenth.
1/10, that's correct.
Pretty impressive effort for a vehicle that basically really has no business fitting into the normal EV mode. They did something different and, a little NSX-like.
I mean, I think it's interesting to see electrification being used in performance applications rather than just, say, for efficiency.
Just for efficiency.
I mean, I think, in my mind, I think it's a really excellent way to get people to like electrification, to not just be like, all right, this isn't 55 miles per gallon. You can do some pretty cool stuff by just adding an electric powertrain in addition to a V8 engine. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, you can't plug it in. Doesn't get that much better fuel economy. You can't really drive it an EV at all, other than super slow speeds. They said so you can leave your home quietly in the morning. I think the E-Ray name over promises in that regard. But as you mentioned, it's the fastest Vet production ever, and you can put some snow tires on there and go have fun in the wintertime with the all-wheel drive. So I'm all about it.
It's pretty cool. Speaking of electrification, our best EV is actually a trio of vehicles this year. And rather than go down each one, I'm just going to mention them and then basically go around the table and talk about anything about them you'd like. But the Ioniq 6 from Hyundai, which is a sedan, the Kia EV9, the first really reasonably priced 3-row, 8-passenger family-size SUV, and a winner from before that's come back because of its updates, the Volkswagen ID4. Not as entry-level as it used to be, but still down there in price pretty well. So just around the table, what made these or even individual ones stand out to you?
The first thing that comes to mind with like the Ioniq 6 was driving that. I had it for a weekend, and there's
good. That's what we call the awards. So that's good driving.
So the space inside of it, like it felt like a much more premium car than it actually is, because I think the Ioniq 6 starts at like $36,000, something like that. But there's just so much space, just a really well-designed interior, and it just felt like a premium luxury sedan. And it really harkened back to like why people still buy cars. Like that's what I felt like.
Why people buy sedans.
Yeah, and also like the design is a little bit polarizing, but overall it's it's very efficient. Like it's just a really good EV and a really good sedan.
I feel like Greg should go here. Greg's been getting shortchanged the last couple times around.
I was probably one of the biggest proponents when we were voting. I remember fighting a few people, not physically, but verbally, in our meeting for the Ioniq 6 because the styling, as Jess mentioned, I feel like that was kind of brought in. Like there was an emotional aspect to our debate, and people didn't love the styling. If you can like kind of imagine, for those who aren't sure what the Ioniq 6 is, it's like
one curve front to back.
Yeah, it's a very simple design, but there's also some like more dynamic stuff going on. But like basically, it's a normal looking kind of like swoopy car in the front, but then it's like being sucked into a vacuum in the back. Like it's all.
That's a good way to do
with a little wing on top. I like it. But,
I like it
to
too.
each his own. But the drive really is what cemented it for me. It's a fun, sporty little EV that's faster than you expect it to be.
I know it's not a performance. They don't claim any like performance numbers, but like we've driven like the highest performance Ioniq 5, which shares the platform with, and that was
feel
okay.
nearly as performance oriented as this.
Yeah, really refined. Just a really solid vehicle. And when I saw that the price tag was just like starts at like $37,000, that's impressive.
And, price tag had a lot to do with another of our best EVs, which is the Kia EV9. And in fairness, most of the staff hadn't had a chance to actually drive it yet. But what Kia did is they took really everything about the Kia Telluride, which is hugely successful three-row SUV for them, and put it into an all-electric vehicle and priced it under $60,000, which sounds like a lot, but it's about 20 grand less than most of its competition, and still managed to deliver up to 300 miles of range, and the feel, the driving capability, the handling, and all of the accoutrements that go along with a big family SUV. And so they really stood out among the rest. Among all the EVs we tested this year, I think it kind of broke the mold.
I think, and I haven't driven it yet, but it does live on that same kind of platform as the Hyundai Ioniq 6.
It follows up on the 6, which we gave our award to last year as best car, best overall.
But I do think that that's where it's like advantageous against say its only competition, which is the Rivian R1S, that it feels less like truck. Like that's like a truck, and
this definitely feels like a Telluride.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like a car-based big SUV.
Of all the EVs that are coming out and that we've driven, there's still very few three-row crossovers. So I got to think, as well as Kia did this one, there's a lot of people that are working on theirs that are like, oh no, we gotta go back to the drawing board if we're gonna top this.
The VW ID4, we picked it as our best EV in past years, largely because for a lot of reasons. It drove great, it had a very low entry-level price, and it offered a lot of a good range. Now they've updated it. Most models are made here in the U.S. It just keeps on coming back for more. It's really the linchpin for all of VW's electrical efforts going forward.
Yeah, we looked at all the EVs, and I think while we wanted to give it to maybe something a little bit newer, we all kept coming back and saying like, okay, well, here's the benchmark, which we all like the ID4. And we're like, okay, well, is this one better? Yeah, no. Okay, well, how about this one? This one's newer. No, the ID4 is still better. It's just a very well-rounded, sizable EV.
And they've done something with it that Volkswagen doesn't have a history of doing. Volkswagen usually, when it comes out with a model, it sticks with that model without very much change to it for quite a while. They seem to be going back every year and updating the ID4. They've done a lot more for the interior to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So that's really, they've sort of adapted some of the Asian mind I think, about continuous improvements.
Yeah, they added a bunch of content, got rid of the smaller standard screen. Everything comes with a bigger touch screen, and they made it cheaper. There's a cheaper version available now. So,
our next category, or I should say our next winner, a little controversial, best small utility, and this is the hottest single segment of the automotive market. And we went electrified on this one, partially anyway, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, which we've had a lot of experience with. We've seen the Outlander PHEV come through 2 generations. We've put a lot of miles on long-term vehicles, and we just come away and think this is almost the perfect small SUV.
Yeah, it does everything pretty well. Although it's small, but it does have a third row.
It doesn't feel that small.
I mean, it does have a third row,
Yeah.
but it is kind of just an expanded version of the Rogue, which, but it drives better than the Rogue. I've liked it a lot better than the Rogue, and electrifying it, I think, only makes it better. Especially, it does have a pretty decent sized battery in it, but it goes up almost like 40 miles of all electric driving, which for the price compared to the other competition is pretty impressive. Plus that interior is actually like way nicer than you would expect to be in a Mitsubishi.
I think they've come a long way.
Yeah, I was gonna say ours is about like 50 grand or so, which I mean, I realize is you're probably hearing 50 grand and like me expecting something uber luxurious because I still live in 1995. But it's people love to diss the Mitsubishi brand. Like I talk to people, even within our industry who like to make fun of the Outlander and Mitsubishi, but it is just like a darn good SUV. And I know they're now tied in with Nissan and everything, but every time I drive it, I'm like, this is, if I had to spend money on something, I would consider it.
Yeah, it's got, like you mentioned, it's got so much stacked against it, right? You got just when they had something good going with the last Outlander, and then we hear they're teaming up with Nissan, so, who knows what's going to happen, but I think it worked out great, and every time I drive it, I like it a little more.
Our best midsize utility, Jeep Grand Cherokee. Jeep's been undergoing a lot of change the last couple of years, and the Grand Cherokee is among them. I think this latest iteration is a pretty great vehicle.
Yeah, I think, it's a repeat winner for a reason. Mm-hmm. When you look at that class of vehicles, it does everything really, really well. That upgraded interior makes that Grand Cherokee feel more luxurious than probably it has a right to be. Driving experience is just way more refined. The fact that you can get it with a third row is really impressive. So with a decent towing capacity, I think it meets a lot of people's needs.
Yeah, they took what was essentially a Range Rover wannabe with the Grand Cherokee and made it nicer. Well, I wouldn't say nicer, almost as nice as a Range Rover. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing is fabulous inside. You got the third row, and then they even got Jeep people into plug-in hybrids, which is selling like crazy. So.
It's kind of interesting. I don't know who is doing all the interior design work at Jeep these days, but the leap they have made on interiors is profound.
I think the guy who was doing all of the interiors, actually, he just went to Scout.
Oh,
Scout.
He did. You're right about that.
Yes.
Which is you should explain what Scout is.
Well, you might be able to explain it a little bit better than myself.
Well, Volkswagen has bought the old Scout name from International. They used to be International Harvester's original, I guess, SUV. Mm-hmm. And they're going to do a whole Scout brand of EV SUVs, I guess.
Yeah. So they should be a little bit more premium on the inside.
Yeah, that's the theory.
So that spells well for Scout.
It's a wild. To me, when I heard that VW had taken the Scout name, I just thought, well, that's a really unusual, unexpected turn of events. Mm-hmm. So, best large utility, a newcomer, as most of our winners are, Toyota Grand Highlander. This is not just a stretched Highlander. It's an all-new vehicle. Why do you think Toyota felt like they had to come out with a larger three-row Highlander since they already had a three-row Highlander? What do you think was behind that? I
would say 2 words: Kia Telluride.
That's true.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty much ruled that segment until the Telluride and Palisade arrived, and we're just selling like crazy, and they realized we need to get a little bigger.
It's in like this weird space, right? Because Highlander buyers,
they're incredibly loyal.
Yes, and if you're using that third row and you want to have cargo area back there, it's not great. It's fine, but it's not
unless you're going to go on a trip.
Yeah. So. But of course, new Sequoia comes out, right? That third row and that cargo area is also not awesome. So this product seems pretty brilliant to me. I think it's actually one of the smartest products that Toyota has come out with in a long time.
But amazingly, they didn't just do a stretch. It's a different platform. They spent they spent a good deal of money on this vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, but the current Highlander platform is at the end of its life cycle, so they'll have a.
So now the next Highlander will be a shortened version of this
platform. That's correct. Yes.
But I think one thing that's super important to mention is that you can get a hybrid powertrain in this for up to 36 miles per gallon.
You can get 2 hybrid powertrains.
Not at the same time. You can choose between 2.
Right.
But like, this is the most efficient.
What would be 2 hybrids? Because hybrid's already a crossover. So like, what?
Be 4 engines.
I didn't mean
a hybrid.
We should explain that you can get one hybrid system for fuel economy, and you can also get the hybrid max.
I think it's important.
More performance.
It's important to note to people who maybe are unsure of what the Highlander is compared to this Grand Highlander. It's not just like, remember the RX? They did a long wheelbase version of the RX, and it was basically the same. It's just longer. This is a much different feeling vehicle than a Highlander. It is much close. Think Lexus. Think, and if you can remember the most recent Venza, how they really pushed it so close to Lexus. You could put a Lexus badge on it and think, okay, this is a Lexus. That's what the Grand Highlander is, and so much so that I'm curious, because we just had a TX in, which is what
with the
Lexus version of this. I'm not.
Why
totally
would you
sure
buy it? Why would you
go for
spend the
Lexus.
extra money?
Yeah. I mean, especially you have to really hate traditional door handles to go with the Lexus, because the Lexus uses electronic door handles, whereas the Grand Highlander has just a normal pull handle.
And it's all about expectations, right? If you're coming from a Highlander and you get into that, you're blown away, right? Mm-hmm. If you're coming from another Lexus and you get in that TX, you're like,
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
But that's that's why that Grand Highlander is seriously a really cool product.
And if you're thinking about running out to buy one, be warned, dealers.
Go back home.
Dealers are charging a good deal of money over list at the current time. Somebody told me 14 grand over list. I heard that.
For which one?
For a Grand Highlander.
But like
I
what
have
powertrain?
no idea. That's just what I heard.
Even the normal gas one?
That's what I heard. Best luxury utility, Porsche Cayenne.
Remember, everybody hated the Cayenne.
No, we thought,
oh my God,
horrible,
it was the end of Porsche.
It was.
Now, I mean, next to the Macan, it's probably one of their best sellers.
Oh yeah, it saved the brand.
Yeah, I mean, it's. And you know what? We're talking about the Mustang and the Corvette being, well, the Corvette not so much anymore, but evolutionary changes rather than revolutionary. And that's kind of where the Cayenne fits into now, because they made such a good first attempt at it years ago. Now you kind of look at each generation, they're basically the same, just more powerful.
Just like a 911.
Exactly. Like it's, and for good reason, because it's, we've come to expect a Cayenne being like the ultimate performance SUV, and it continues to be that.
Yeah, it's weird. We give the 5 Series best luxury car and the Cayenne best luxury utility, but that's just where we are with things. Like, performance is now a luxury item for most people, and when you can deliver all of that performance and then have an incredible amount of luxury on top of it, it pretty much seals the deal. And we
drove
just
on
had
a
a turbo
racetrack
GT,
recently.
on a racetrack, but that interior, it was like insane. It was so nice.
Yeah, I like that there's like a Cayenne for anybody. Like they have such a wide variety of buyers for this product, right? You can go from like a base Cayenne, which is still a very nice vehicle, to what we drove just a few weeks ago.
Which was insane.
The Turbo GT. So yeah, and like Brian was saying, that interior, like they do the sport luxury interiors the best. I mean, they are just so nice when you get inside. They just do everything so good. So good.
I think that pretty much sums up why the Cayenne's our best luxury utility. Best luxury utility. Best small truck. A new generation, a new duo from Chevrolet and GMC, the Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon. And they're not strictly badge engineered. There is actually some differences between the two of them, but we felt that they collectively served the small truck market better than any competitor.
Which includes the Tacoma, which I feel like we all had to stop and remind them. Like before we put this in pen, we were like, just so we're sure, we're picking the Colorado Canyon over the Toyota Tacoma, which is brand
the best,
new.
and it's the best selling small truck out there.
And I think for good reason. Feature packed. They gave buyers what they wanted. You have an off-road version. You can get it all beefed up. You can just have it, to where it's very streetable. My biggest thing was I remember driving when they brought back the Colorado, the powertrain seemed kind of old and a little clunky, and they fixed all that with the new one. It's a very smooth acting powertrain.
Yeah, I think it's just, if you park a current one next to the previous generation, I mean, it's so vastly different and so much better. It's like they finally took this segment seriously. I mean, although they sold a ton of Colorados and all that, I get it, but I mean, it's a real truck now.
I used to hate riding in a passenger seat in a Colorado or Canyon. I always felt cramped. I always felt like the floorboard, like I didn't get the spaciousness that the driver got, that somehow you were shortchanging the passenger. I don't think there's any shortchange in any of the seats on the new Colorado and Canyon.
No, I mean, they're certainly more luxurious now than ever. I mean, the price tags certainly reflect that these days, but this is a very competitive segment, and it's really nice to see all of the midsize trucks, really stepping up their game, because this is a segment in which people are looking at, because they don't want the half ton. They don't want something that big, but they want something that's still incredibly capable. Just really well done vehicles by Chevy and GM.
Which is a good segue into our best full-size truck. Here, we picked the Chevrolet Silverado on its own, by itself. And I think it's not only their half-ton, but it's also their heavy-duty, and it's the EV, and it's all of the above. Yeah. Anyone want to expound on that?
I think they made the interior, went from probably the worst in the segment to the best in the segment. So that's something there. The work truck EV has more miles of range than any EV truck to this point. And the heavy duty got redone with some powertrain updates and a ton of tech as far as towing stuff to make your towing life easier. So
I think by now they realize they're not going to catch Ford in this whole race, but when Ram was catching up and surpassing them at some point.
I think that was the wake-up call.
I think that was exactly the wake-up call, and they're like, okay, we got to get back to the drawing board and really come out with something special, and they have.
Yeah, in a lot of ways they did that, was the interior, making it a place that people wanted to spend time.
Yeah, and they still offer plenty of, work, quote-unquote, work trucks, right? These are trucks that people can buy to do things with, so while they are very luxurious, there's a ton of customizing that you can still do for these trucks, and I think they just refined it. It's certainly more refined than the previous generation.
And that's a good point you touched on there. While some of their competition, namely Ford, has actually been making headlines by offering fewer variations of their F-150, Chevrolet seems to be going the other way by cutting the pie even smaller slices to make sure they can customize it any way you want.
Yeah, plenty of trim levels and plenty of packages that you can still get. Just really, really interesting.
And everyone that owns one drives them to really cool off-road places that
he's being facetious,
that I would love
folks.
to go to. Yeah.
That's our main categories. However, later in this podcast, we have one more category to talk about, and that is the vehicle among all of these that we've talked about so far that we picked as our best of the year. But before we move on to that, We want to thank our sponsors of this podcast and of our TV series MotorWeek, Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, and TireRack.com. We know our viewers and our listeners appreciate your dedication to all things MotorWeek. And by the way, folks, did you know that you can watch MotorWeek and other PBS programming anywhere? You don't have to be at home watching it on a big screen. You can do it on a small screen with the free PBS app. Download the PBS app now on your smartphone, tablet, or smart TV, and you'll never miss a mile of MotorWeek.
Well said.
Okay, lightning round. 30 seconds will give each of us to comment on an automotive topic. We actually don't keep time anymore.
We don't even have the bell.
We don't even have the bell today. I can play bell. Right. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, after reports that the General Motors, that their dealerships have been petitioning the brand to reintroduce hybrid models to help bridge the gap between gas and full electric, CEO Mary Barra recently announced that GM plans to start selling plug-in hybrids in North America again. Personally, I think dropping the Volt was one of the dumbest things they ever did. There's something, a footnote here. They are just now starting to sell a new PHEV sedan in China, which actually amazingly looks like a Volt. And they have announced a PHEV, a plug-in hybrid version of the redesigned Equinox. We're getting a new Equinox here soon. For those of you that don't remember the last PHEV that GM sold, it was the Volt. It was a hatchback, and it did not sell that well, but it was a pretty terrific vehicle with about 60 miles worth of EV range. They've made no specific timetable on when they're going to reintroduce the PHEVs, but the question for our group here is, do you think other brands are going to follow their lead and find ways to lower emissions in the interim without going full EV, since there's a pushback in sales on full EVs going on right now just about everywhere?
They certainly should. I think we've talked on it. I can't even tell you how many times we've mentioned it on this podcast. Of like,
we just
EVs are like we talk about EVs because that's what's new. That's what car makers are making, and they're sending us to test. That is our job. But we've all mentioned that like the best sweet spot, the sweet spot that everybody asks for, but then somehow overlooks. I'm talking about consumers typically. Is the PHEV, where it's the best of both worlds. You can run it on full electric, and you can also have that gas engine to fall back on. So, like, in hindsight, this is like we should have never skipped this step, but here we are. So, yes, the answer is I think other brands will, and they should.
Well, it's weird. It's kind of a weird question to say, should other brands follow their lead? No, because they stopped making them. And now they're reintroducing. I mean, like the Volt came out, like we had to explain to people like what a plug-in
hybrid was. And then they doubled down on that by introducing the Bolt with a B, and they're like, okay, let's confuse people even further.
Right. And so that was all those years ago, and they were getting 60 miles of range. People have been making plug-in hybrids over the last 15 years, still not reaching 60 miles of range.
One with 30 or 40 were ecstatic.
Yeah. So I mean, they had something 15 years ago that no one else can still make. It's just mind blowing when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Volt is that it's like a cult classic movie, right?
Yeah.
Where like
wasn't popular at first, but
now people love them. Right. Love, like, even to this day, like trying to find one in decent shape, to buy used, right? People are very interested in them and having them because of how efficient they are. And even, I think a ton of automotive journalists have owned them over the years and have loved them because if you are the type of person who, can plug it in at your house, or even if you didn't have to plug it in at your house, you would never have to go, you would almost never go get gas.
No, as a matter of fact, the Volt was set up with a system that would start the gas engine periodically on its own, just so it would start once in a while.
Like that, yeah. It's pretty. I think other brands will probably do something similar, or like either with hybrids or plug-in hybrids or something, because they're going to have to recoup some of this money that they went to spend to start developing their all-electric vehicles. I mean,
they got to make some money somewhere.
Exactly, and they have to sell vehicles. That's what they do. So I think Toyota is smart in kind of being resting on their laurels a little bit, focusing on hybrids and seeing where things played out, but still having electrified options.
Is this a theme with GM, like coming out with something where like they believe in enough to bring to market? So I'm thinking Aztec.
They lead the market.
Where they're like ahead of its time with the whole adventure-ready SUV. They meet the public who is like, I don't like it or I don't understand it, and they're like, oh yeah, you're right, that's cool. We're going to take it away, and then years down the road, adventure-ready SUVs are in. Same thing with the Volt. They come out with something that's ahead of its time. People don't get it. They don't understand it. Maybe to GM's fault there a little bit. And then they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. We're going to take it away. And then now, like at a time when they need it back, they're going to have to
seriously, now that you bring that up, that is almost the history of General Motors.
Give me another example. You got to have another example.
Automatic EV1, right?
EV1 was, which they went down and said that was the worst mistake they ever did.
Stop listening to the public, GM.
Automatic
believe in yourself.
Airbags, automatic ABS brakes, almost every automotive technology you can think of probably started somewhere at General Motors, and they didn't either market it properly or they did, and the dealers didn't know how to sell it.
I think it's a confidence issue, maybe. Yeah. Like they're so quick to react to the reaction of the public.
Well, and what's so funny is that not to say that they don't have trouble selling their cars, but compared to other brands, they have way less trouble selling their cars to people, considering that, like Ford, Chevy dealerships and other GM dealerships are so plentiful across the U.S. in places where other dealerships might not be. Sometimes I think do they even need automotive journalists to sell their cars?
I don't think they do.
I like this job.
I mean, we have a great job, and I think it's important, especially for this reason and why we're talking about it. But people go and buy their cars because they are convenient. I mean, the Chevrolet Equinox is the third best-selling compact crossover in the country.
And they're
Does
everywhere.
It deserve to be the third best-selling?
Well, they're everywhere. They're reasonably priced. That you can get in them for not a lot of money. They're a
you
big
can rent
fleet.
one, and then you're like, hey, I like this.
A lot of that is fleet sales.
It is. People at companies drive them all the time. Then when they get ready to buy one for their personal use, they think, hey, it never let me down.
I just saw one with Mary Kay badging on it.
Pink? Was it pink?
No, it was white, but it had. And you know what's funny about it? I know we're going off on a tangent here, but I don't care. So it has. It was a new Equinox. It had Mary Kay very well written on the back on the hatch. It was centered perfect. So Equinox on the door, the badge is a little bit slanted. I don't know if you noticed. So then the Mary Kay they also put above Equinox, the door badge, but they put it straight. So it's it was driving me nuts. No symmetry.
I mean,
that's the kind of thing that drives us crazy when we're stuck in traffic behind something.
Yeah, I was at this light for a while, so I was just fuming.
But it's definitely a no-brainer, I think, to put a plug-in hybrid powertrain into that vehicle.
And
it makes the most sense.
The fact that they've got one that they're the same vehicle we're buying here, they're going to do it in China. So I think that says a lot about what's going to happen. Okay, thanks everybody. We've got one accolade for our 2024 MotorWeek Driver's Choice left, and that is our overall best of the year. And the winner is, drum roll please, the Ford Mustang, the 7th generation and the only American pony car left on the market today. Why did we pick, among all those other terrific vehicles we talked about, the Mustang as best of the year?
It's the Mustang, man. And there's a new one. It's funny. We put Mustang in Sport Coupe, and I don't know about other people. I don't think of the Mustang as a sport coupe. I think of it as like its own thing. Like it's weird that it's in that
pony car.
It is.
It has two doors.
It's a 2-door and it's sport oriented. But like it's its own class. It's a pony car, the original, and it's just better than ever. Like Jess had said, with the whole still having the convertible, you have the GT, you have the 4-cylinder. Now you have the Dark Horse, which I could continue talking about that. And I'd say going even further with the GTD, which is like their Halo Mustang now, which is like cool. Basically a 911 GT3 RS fighter. And people are like, well, who's going to buy that? Blah, 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 blah.
It doesn't.
At least they're doing like
they're doing it.
Right. They're saying like, hey, Porsche, we can do that too, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can still get the base 4-cylinder, which we talked about, and I think Ford, many of us were like, when the Mach-E came out, we're like, is this the end of the Mustang? Blah blah blah. Ford said no, so that's awesome. But they continue to put in like new cool features for people, right? They put in line lock way
brake.
Before anyone else, right?
Brake.
So now they got this year they added drift brake, which turns anyone into less common sense than they need into whatever kind of drifter they want to be. So that's cool. They're clearly make stuff for enthusiasts that people want to buy.
Now, I mean, I really want to focus on them still offering like a convertible option, because when you look down that list of how many vehicles that you can still get to this day with a convertible, it's a very small list. At least one at the price point that we're talking about.
So much so we used to have a best convertible category,
That's right.
which
Really?
we no longer have because no one makes them anymore.
I was there for those years.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Well, then it's important to note that, because I mean, you're looking at decently under like $50,000, maybe $45,000, you can get a nice convertible.
Refinement. They didn't forget that. They just made it a much nicer vehicle than it ever was before. Kudos to Ford. They deserve every accolade they can get. As a matter of fact, it was a pretty easy pick as our best of the year winner.
Pretty unanimous.
For 2024, the Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that note, we're going to head to Rant and Rave, and then we'll wrap things up. Anybody got anything that they want to complain about or cheer about in the automotive world?
Apple CarPlay.
GM and Apple CarPlay. Do I get that all the time now? Why has GM abandoned Apple CarPlay and Android Auto?
That's another example.
Yeah.
Anyway, it has not done.
No, I have to say, I just wonder if this is not going to be another short-sighted decision as well.
That's not what I was getting into. It was specifically with Apple CarPlay. I just realized it today. So Apple CarPlay, basically, your phone basically is projected onto your screen. All your normal screens are there. So it's very easy to navigate instead of navigating, the manufacturer's software. So anyway, what I noticed today was and we have this issue with our Kia EV6 long-term, where you select the lower customizable control panel, and if you start it on climate and then go to radio, it won't go back to climate. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So you switch you can.
Yeah.
But my now tie into Apple CarPlay is my daughter likes to see the music we're listening to on Spotify. So then say my wife texts me, I select her little bubble that pops up.
Right.
It takes me away from Spotify and takes me to messages. And then once I'm done my text message voice activation, it doesn't take me back to Spotify.
No.
Why doesn't it do that?
Hyundai's, my Hyundai Palisade is the same way.
It's a CarPlay thing. I don't understand. Why wouldn't it just take me back? I was on that screen for a reason. You forced me to go to this other screen. I mean, I guess you could say you didn't force me, but let's not put the blame on me here. Let's put it on Apple. It should go back from the screen you just went to for a second and go back to my Spotify.
It shouldn't even go out of the screen. It should just be
correct.
It should just.
Right.
If you I want you to read
just
this
read
text,
it to
just
me.
read the text message, and then Siri can work in the background of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know why it's not like when you use it on on your normal iPhone that it's not just
I would
like not bouncing around to different windows. Like it shouldn't need to do that.
I use the Apple Maps a lot, and when a text comes in, you hit the text, it reads it, and then it's like 2 or 3 hits to go back to the map again. You
Certainly
have to go to radio,
it
then you got to go home, then you got to head Apple CarPlay. Yeah. So the integration of some of these, that's actually a good rant. The integration of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto across different brands is far from uniform. Some it works very easily. Some I have yet to be able to connect on a routine basis my Apple CarPlay with some of them. So. Yeah,
Mazda, our long-term Mazda seems to have some weird bug where like you plug it in like right when you start the car.
It comes
and it takes a couple, but sometimes it doesn't. So you have to like unplug and replug.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But like to your point, it doesn't seem like it's not necessarily plug and play the same across the board.
It's not. I have that problem in my Maverick sometimes where like if your phone is connected wirelessly, like Bluetooth wise, and then you need to do it wired for CarPlay, you like have to like quickly kind of like plug it in before your car recognizes your Bluetooth, so that you're like you can just like get going.
This stuff should not be so complicated. But I think again, the manufacturers hate Android Auto and Apple CarPlay.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't control the data.
It's a nightmare.
They don't control it. And actually, that's one of the reasons GM's moving away with it.
I hate their operating system, so.
I didn't think we would spark that kind of response. That was a pretty good one.
That was a good one.
All right, everybody out there, thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. Thanks very much to our panelists. If you're wondering what time MotorWeek, the television series, can be seen on your local public television station, please go to our website, motorweek.org, click on the tab Watch MotorWeek, then enter your zip code for days and times in your area, or hop on over to our cable partner, mavtv.com, for their schedule. You can also watch MotorWeek and other PBS programming anytime, anywhere with the free PBS app. Download the app now on your smartphone, tablet, or smart TV, and you'll never miss any of MotorWeek or any of the other great PBS programming. Also, all of our individual road test and feature segments are also available at youtube.com/MotorWeek. What we say around here, everybody, is if you've got a screen, you can watch MotorWeek. Thanks to our two-wheeling reporter, Brian Robinson, over-the-edge reporter, Greg Carlos, podcast producer and digital expertise, Jessica Ray, audio engineer today, David Wainwright. David, thank you very much. Podcast creator, Bob Mixter. I'm John Davis. Thanks for being a part of MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.